In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Delighted to welcome award-winning crime fiction author Carl Vonderau to The Conversation to discuss his career and his most recent thriller, Saving Myles, a story of a father's desperate quest to save his son. Carl is a Cleveland native. He studied economics at Stanford, traveled and studied music in Latin America, and ultimately built a career in international banking, living and working in Canada, North Africa, and throughout Latin America. In Saving Myles, Wade, a respected La Jolla banker, faces a nightmare no parent ever wants to endure when his troubled teenage son, Myles, is kidnapped in Tijuana. Carl Vonderau, welcome to The Conversation. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
What made you decide to write fiction?
I had always been interested in fiction and creativity. At one point, I wrote music. I was a guitar player, and then I told stories at a young age. And so at one point, I decided rather than music, I want to pursue writing fiction and novels. And I was working at a very conservative bank. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Took some courses, didn't get anything published. Moved to Canada, found more fiction friends, and wrote more. And then moved back to San Diego. And here I found a lot of resources to help me get better at writing fiction. All the things we talked about earlier. What's a scene? How do you make a scene work? A voice, pace, tone, all that stuff. It takes a long time to learn it. You get all these resources here, a critique group, writers' conferences, introduced to agents. I even learned how to pitch a book, which was a special course on that. It starts from wanting to do this. And even then, I was working for conservative banks here, and I didn't tell anyone. And then after I left and went full-time fiction, I saw this senior vice president at one of these banks I'd worked for, and she said, "Oh, I haven't seen you for a while. What are you doing?" "I'm writing novels." "Really? I want to buy your book." And I said, "Sure." And she said, "What's it about?" I said, "It's about a banker for a private bank for very wealthy people who has his life torn apart when he's accused of being a serial killer like his father." Oh.
I found Saving Myles to be a deeply personal and intense thriller. What inspired that story?
There's some personal inspiration to it. 20 years ago, we had to send my son to a residential treatment center. And I always wanted to write with that in mind, really. So I had to wait till he was older and when he gave me permission to do that. And I thought, you're always looking for an aspect that will amplify the crime. And I thought the residential treatment center just permeates the whole family. And really, my stories are about dysfunctional families and how they come together. So I wanted to do that. And then obviously I come from banking and international. So I wanted there to be something about Quebec, something about Mexico. I wanted there to be about banking. And I didn't know a lot about money laundering. You'll be glad to know. But so I actually took some courses on money laundering and what it does. And I'd done the international trade. So all that I could understand quite a bit. I wanted to put that all in the book. And then I had to come up with the kind of premise that would inspire all those elements.
Carl Vonderau is our guest. We're talking about Saving Myles, his latest. His website is Carl, Vonderau, carlvonderau.com. The family dynamic between Wade and Myles was especially powerful for me. It sounds like writing for you has some therapeutic benefits.
Yeah, I think it was. I have two sons. It helped me analyze my own relationships with them and the relationship when you have a son that really needs some help and what you did right and what you did wrong and what he did right and what he did wrong. Because what you find in these situations is that, particularly when you find as you write about it, that everybody's right and everybody's wrong. And it's that kind of conflict that really, I think, resonates with readers because most of us are parents. And none of us are right all the time. And we just try not to be wrong, or try not to be wrong and to be right as often as possible.
And sometimes doing the wrong things for what you think are the right reasons?
Yeah, yeah. You have two parents who their son is so difficult that, they're at a point where they have to think that they have to save his life, no matter how it destroys their relationship with him, because that's fundamentally what a parent has to do. And when you send a kid to a residential treatment center, they will feel betrayed and they might never forgive you. But if it means saving his life, it's what you have to do. And I think part of the power of the book was that both of these characters coming to this realization that they were both had to change, and they both wanted to be closer to each other. And I think that's what I tried to have them succeed in doing.
And how did you craft Wade's transformation from this unassuming banker who finds himself entangled in cartel dealings?
Yeah. How do you go from being a very successful commercial real estate lender, one of the top ones in San Diego, to being involved in money laundering? It's a step at a time. Plus, there's an internal change in him that he wants to be closer to his family. He's dedicated his whole life to being a successful banker, 24 hours a day, to the detriment of his family and of his marriage. And the only way he's able to survive, to get his son back and have the family survive, is to get in closer touch with his family. And he does that gradually. And even before the book starts, Wade is one of the few bankers who does yoga. He even has a yoga mat in his office. So he's trying to change. He's trying to get in a little bit of music, and his son loves heavy metal. So he does more of a folk. He's trying to get closer. And it's only when his son comes back and they have these kinds of discussions. And actually when his son later in the book has great sympathy for him and tries to help his father, and his wife tries to help him, that they really start to get close.
How do you construct something like that to keep people on edge, yet not lose the essence of the story you want?
Yeah, pace is a big thing in thrillers. And I'm character driven, but the minute you start to bore a reader, they don't care about the characters. I had to always be looking at where I put in certain elements and how to keep the pace going. At the same time, I was deepening the characterization. And it's not really a tell, but they get the son back, and then how do you keep the pace going through the rest of the book? Because most kidnap books, after the victim's return, that's the end of it. Here, it's just the beginning.
Yeah, when it's something like that happens in Act 2, then you got to figure out what Act 3 is going to be.
And you've got two families. One is Wade, his wife, who works for a nonprofit. She, of course, feels that she's had to raise the son. She's had to give up her 20s because she got pregnant early. The father was never around, and yet the son has gone off the rails, and she feels totally guilty about it. And so she's helping a nonprofit that helps kids, right? So that's her side of it, and then his trying to get back to them. And then you've got a Mexican family, which the father is an immigrant from Quebec to Mexico under mysterious circumstances. He's married to a woman who's the daughter of a cartel. So what are the principles that drive this family? And I wanted it to be related, that there's a way about a cartel family that anybody can understand. And the way I did it was, first of all, you have to know that the cartels in Colombia actually revered the Kennedys, because the father was a bootlegger and the son was president. So that's what they want in their family. So what are the two principles that guide them? And violence is irrelevant. It's one, that your children must survive and your children must have a better life than you do. And what parent can. And they're very loyal to that principle, even though they'll kill everybody else around them. So you had two family. And plus, I thought it would be really fun to have their child, the daughter, be a superstar student in school. And she's the one going to Stanford. And the superstar banker, his son is having all kinds of problems. You put that conflict in there as well.
The book is Saving Myles by our special guest, Carl Vonderau. CarlVonderau.com is his website. How do you hold such an intricate plot together?
Yeah, it was not easy, and there are 3 points of view in it too. That was a real challenge, and it took several revisions to do that. But and you have the money laundering in there, which I tried to simplify as much as possible. But you've got to keep it driving forward, that there's always, every time you solve one danger, there's something else that crops up. Every time the family seems to be getting together, there's something that drives them apart.
So it sounds like you're a plotter and not a pantser. Was something that complicated? Do you have to plan in advance?
I did to some extent. In my first book, I was a total plotter. This one, it was both. And the problem with plotting is that it keeps changing because you get into it and another idea occurs that's better than what you've put in your outline. And now, the book I'm writing now, I haven't plotted at all. So I'm going complete from a pantser at the moment. And I think I have plotted it. Sorry, I'm using the plotter software, but I'm not plotting it nearly as carefully as the other books. And scenes change around depending on what the pacing is and what's needed to drive the book forward. So I'm both.
In Saving Myles, did these characters that you created decide to go off on their own tangents without your permission?
Yeah. For one, I thought in many ways the wife was really interesting, and she went off on her own tangents, and she's kicked her husband out of the house. So in many ways, people would at least relate to her, but I thought I could understand it. I could understand everything. The son went off on his own tangent. I had to develop his voice as a teenager, and I guess that's been a while. That did too. And then one of the characters, one of the other bankers, he went off on his own voice, and the credit guy. And he was fun to write because he uses all these mixed metaphors. Something you're told to never write, and he just uses them throughout his dialogue. So that was fun.
You were breaking a lot of rules in that book.
The opening is a complete rule breakage, right? Because the son is kidnapped. That's where you normally start the book. And initially, when I wrote it, I did start it there. And then I talked to a few people, and they said, well, who are these people? Why do we even feel for them? And then I realized, I looked at Mystic River, and in the candy factory, the boy gets kidnapped when he's, 11 or 12. And the rest of the book takes place 25 years later. And it has nothing to do with a kidnapping, yet it has everything to do with that kidnapping. So then I thought, when these parents have to send their kid off to a residential treatment center, it doesn't relate maybe later to the book, but it has everything to do with how they interacted in the rest of the book.
I didn't really want the book to end. Do you think there will ever be a sequel to Saving Myles?
There could be a sequel. I've got to sell a few more books first to do that. Yeah, I got another book that is in submission, and I'm writing a book after that. You just never know on this stuff.
But so far, they've all been standalones.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I like standalones because you can really delve into a book. It takes longer to write, though.
If Saving Myles were adapted into a movie or TV series, who would you want to cast as the two main protagonists, as Wade and Myles?
Think of Fiona, the wife. She's taller than he is, so I think of Nicole Kidman. And then for Wade, I don't know, Damian Lewis or Paul Giamatti would be nice for him. And then the kid, I'm at a loss because I don't know that many actors that age, but Timothy Chalamet maybe? I don't know.
Why do you write?
It's a way for me to synthesize everything I am in my own point of view. Yet it relies on everything around me, but it's really who I am more than anything else, and getting to the bottom of that. Plus just the act of creativity. When you have a scene that I write by hand really fast on the first draft, and then suddenly an idea occurs to you or a line of dialogue that works, it's a very fulfilling moment.
How different is the final draft from the first draft?
A lot. First book I wrote, 20 sometimes. This one, it was 10 or 15. And the ending, I always have something in mind, and it always changes.
I'm impatient. I just want to get the story out. So I accept every suggestion the editors give me. I just would accept all.
I'll do that too. But here's something else. Are you in a writer's group?
I have been. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are benefits and problems with writers' groups. And the benefits are, you think this is the greatest scene that's ever been written, and they tell you missed the barn. That's one of the benefits. And then, or maybe you think this is just okay. And then you find out, yeah, it's really pretty good. But the downside is that you can only look at 10 pages at a time, and they can't get an idea of the whole arc. And then a lot of people bring in the same 10 pages over and over again. So by the time you've written the book, if it's your first book, that's fine. It can take you 10 years. But if it's other books, it just takes too long.
What do your favorite readers tell you they like most about your writing?
I think they like that I have a lot of heart. You're going to feel emotion. And when I'm writing something and I feel a tear in my eye, I think I'm probably doing something right here. And I think you'll feel emotion in this book. Because for all the characters, particularly this family.
How has writing changed you?
I think I'm more open. I'm to other ideas, other people, open to expressing emotion. I came from a family where you didn't do that. You very much kept it bottled up inside. I came from a Christian Science family where you're only supposed to reflect God. And if you're really upset about something, you're not reflecting God. From that side, it's opened me up a lot more. And then my wife is much more emotional than I am. So that's helped a lot too.
What does H. Jackson Brown say? 99.9% of our happiness in life is dependent upon who we pick as our partner. So you obviously chose well.
40 years. But it's the ways you grow closer is by fighting. And at least I believe that. And I think these characters in this book find that too.
What do you hope readers will take away from Saving Myles?
I hope that they will take away that even the most troubled teenager, the most dysfunctional family, they can come together and forgive each other and then learn to cherish each other again.
The website is Carl Vonderau, VONDERAU.com. The book is Saving Myles. It's available wherever cool books are sold. Carl, great to have you on the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Terry. This was a great deal of fun. Thanks.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.